Director of Public Relations. Or a $2.99
is available only at the
Sir, there's no alternative.
Hey everybody, today's guest is Tony Scalzo from the Austin, Texas rock band Fastball. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind their breakout smash hit single, The Way, taken from their 1998 album, All the Pain Money Can Buy. Tony was a lot of fun to talk to. He's equal parts quirky, fun, musically knowledgeable, and self-deprecating, all rolled into one. He mentioned that The Way was lyrically inspired by a newspaper headline he read one morning, and how he turned that idea into a demo, where some parts of that demo were tweaked and actually made it onto the recording that we hear today. Tony gave props to producer Julian Raymond, who brought everything together in the studio. The track wasn't overthought. In fact, Tony just considered it another song in the bunch, not realizing at the time what a monster hit they had on their hands. And in continuing with the quirky theme, we get both a Brandi Carlile and a Twin Peaks reference in this episode. Pretty cool. For all this and a whole lot more, stick around.
Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast.
Well, hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm good. How's it going, Chris?
It's going very, very well. Where are you at today?
I'm at home in Austin, Texas.
I want to say, and I could be wrong here, fall of 98, I want to say Less Than Jake did one of those radio shows that you guys were on back in the day, and I don't remember if it was in Austin or not.
Yeah, I think I know what it was. I think it was us, you guys, the Nixons, and Poe. Do you remember? And it was at Austin Music Hall.
Yes, that's what it was. Exactly.
We have a video from that, or at least there's a video on YouTube of our performance. And we were pretty aggressive back then. It was kind of mind blowing how, the spark of youth, the fuse was lit,
Absolutely.
We hadn't achieved any real success at all other than being played on local radio. I think we're the first band on that bill too.
I remember, when your second record came out, All the Pain Money Can Buy, came out in January 98, which of course spawned the smash hit The Way that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah,
but
I'll correct you. It came out in April.
It did.
98. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was already recorded. It was in the can. It was mixed, mastered, and we were kind of doing some of the preliminary, promotion for it going. They were already sending it to radio, I think by February.
Well, it's crazy. This song was arguably one of the biggest songs of that year. And I remember there was a radio programmer at Capitol Records who, this song came out, and I don't know how familiar you are with my band, but we're, like a ska punk band. Okay.
Right,
we sound nothing like Fastball, not even in the same world. Definitely at that point, we couldn't even emulate what your band sounded like and try to pull it off even as a cover band, probably.
And likewise, I mean, yeah. I don't think we would be able to, pull off that. And, it's funny, I kind of came from that area, one of the biggest little bands going just before I moved to Austin was No Doubt. And I would actually be able to see them in a room full of like 100 people.
Right.
They were very, very good back then. And, they kind of helped with bringing that thing together that you all did.
Oh, absolutely. Well, there was this radio programmer at Capitol who'd stop by the studio one day, and he says, "Hey, you heard that song by Fastball?" And we're like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "Yeah, The Way." He's like, "You guys need to write something like that." And I remember thinking, like, how do you even do that? And
they told us the same thing after that. So I mean, what are you going to do? I don't know how to do that, and that can sort of go into talking about the actual writing of the song. How was I to know that it would be successful? I mean, I was just doing something I thought was cool, and I guess other people thought it was cool. So I wonder how many things do we actually do that we think are cool, though, and they aren't. It just turns out that they are not.
Yeah, I do 50 things a day I think is cool. My kids remind me, Dad, you're not very cool.
Right.
Well, was this track The Way? First of all, do you remember writing the song?
Absolutely.
Great. And was it a leftover from your first record, Make Your Mama Proud, or was this written specifically for All the Pain Money Can Buy?
It was written for the upcoming album that we were, required to come up with after being on the road touring our first record, Make Your Mama Proud. All of a sudden we got to write, the drill, got to make your next album. So it was for that. Yeah, it was for that. And I had a crop of things, in my little, work roster, but that was just one of them. Really, it wasn't like a full on, this is the one, baby. There was no inkling of that until we had already recorded it.
Okay. So that's what I was going to ask. Now, do you recall if the demo arrangement was the same at what ended up on the record? Or
sure.
Yeah.
So we just did a 25 or 20. I can't remember if it's 20 or 25. But we put out a reissue of All the Pain Money Can Buy, which is the album The Way's on. And then we also added a bunch of tracks, and we even added the actual demo because I found an old cassette. It said Work 97. That's all it said. I was digging for months, literally months, because I knew that if I found it, it would at least hold some value to me. But I did finally find it, and we were able to get it digitized, and we put it on the album, the reissue, and it is surprisingly similar.
Anyone can see the road that they walk on is paved in gold. It's always summer, they'll never get cold, they'll never get hungry, they'll never get old and gray. You can see their shadow.
It's like we used the demo as a template for the actual recording. And so much so that we tried to reproduce the little keyboard kind of, that kind of thing you get on those old Casios, and you were able to play. So we really wanted to try and capture that vibe, and then also bring in the full band at the second verse, so that it had layers of, energy or power or whatever. And so, the demos were done. I did a bunch of stuff before that album was recorded, and we went in the studio. I was left alone out here in Austin. Nobody bugged us or messed with us about, what are you doing? How's it going? Hey, it's Rob Seidenberg from Hollywood. I just want to know how's it going? And then you're like, well, I'm working on some music, but I was able to work with a friend who I didn't know anything. It's still very, rudimentary on my technical, my studio.
Right.
Quote. Yeah. I was able to get somebody to help me, and he happened to have a keyboard that had this rhythm, and I already had sort of the song. The song was written, but I kind of wanted to demo it and turn it into a band, which I didn't have available because, it's surprising, when we're not on the road or in the studio, I see very little of Miles and Joey, and this is the way it's been all the way back, So most of our songwriting is done separately, though we have collaborated quite a bit. Most of our songwriting, we're at our own places and we're in our own heads, and we tend to bring things to the band later to record. But I think Miles is a really big factor in deciding that the demo, the coolness of the demo would be ruined by adapting it for a straight rock band. And he was right. And we were able to, rather than we did bring the same keyboard in, but we had it engineered by a dude who made it into a loop that ran verse by verse by verse and choruses. He arranged it and he did it so it would be lined up to 440, so it'd be tuned properly, and it would be the exact BPMs.
That's what I'm calling percussion that's kind of running through this
exactly,
whole song.
Exactly.
Yeah, that part's awesome. And question for you, mentioned A&R person a moment ago. Was that person Julian Raymond, who ended up producing the album?
He wasn't our A&R guy, though he was a vice president of A&R at the time, but he was the producer of our record, of 2 records of ours.
I love his production.
I did too.
I've been buddies with the Suicide Machines out of Detroit forever, but I love the later Cheap Trick records he's done. The production's just outstanding.
And Duran Duran as well.
Yeah.
He did the early Insane Clown Posse stuff, and we hung out a lot with Suicide Machines. They were the coolest, man, these Michigan guys, and I thought they talked funny, and I think they thought I talked funny. And, it's just cool to get their perspective, what they did. We all did the same thing. Your band and my band and the Suicide Machines and all the other bands, we all did exactly the same thing, which is get in a van with a trailer behind it, sleep on a makeshift loft that we built in the back on top of our gear, and learn to sleep with our head rattling against a glass window. And that's where we do fall into. That is straight 90s. That's the deal. That's what it was. I mean, we all read Get in the Van, and we were all like, informed by the DIY punk thing, and it turned into a way of life for us. And though people do it today, I think things are very different. I mean, if you're able to really go on the road, you're doing things a little bit differently. You're probably doing things a little bit safer. You're probably, maybe even sleeping in your own bed.
Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to do a reality show today and put a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds in a van with no smartphones for a month.
No phones.
Just an
no
atlas.
Phones at all.
Just
a dime.
Yeah, just an atlas, an atlas and a map, and you have to use payphones along the way if you can find them.
You sound like old man, dude.
We are. Well, and one last thing about Julian Raymond, I don't feel he gets talked about enough or gets the praise he should as a producer. Again, I've always loved his stuff, and I think there's just something special about this track, the way that we're gonna break into right now.
Right on.
The song is 4 minutes and 17 seconds. There's a
420.
Yeah,
420.
420. Okay, 420. It's a 5-second intro, which Tony, I got to ask you, was a little bit, I don't know. It doesn't seem like anybody at a label at that time or anybody at a radio station would want radio interference of channel changing at the start of a hit single.
Director of Public Relations or a 290
is available only at the
Sir, there's no other.
Okay.
Well, we were not thinking about that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know we weren't thinking about it. But after hearing you say that, I would say it's just the opposite. And that once they heard, hey, it's the sound of us. It's us. We're on this record. That's what the radio people thought. They were like identifying with it immediately. And listen, man, it's got a real powerful, I mean, this is all in retrospect. I could say, I meant to do that, right? But it just wouldn't be true. And not taking away any credit from Julian, but he didn't. He's like, I don't know whether it's me or Miles, frankly, but I definitely turned the dial on that radio and we put a mic in front of it. And Julian's just like, go ahead, set up a mic over there and have him do it. And we did it. And that was the first thing, the take of it. That's the way it came out.
That's awesome.
And that's the summer of 1997. And so what you're hearing is little bits of things, a car commercial or something in Espanol. And I think Jewel's on there.
Yeah, Foolish Games by Jewel.
Right. So, that's my theory is that helped. It's like we brought in the radio mojo to give, and, it's funny. You have a hit like that on the radio, you're going to be in more radio stations by far than any employee at any radio station.
Never thought about it like that. Yeah.
You're going to be doing that. And it's much the same with flights, hotels. I'm in more hotels than anybody who works at a hotel. So I think I do have some kind of say as to what the way things should be.
Yeah.
Right? So radio is like, I got to learn the thing a little bit. I don't know, it never did me any good. But I really enjoy speaking, at radio stations and doing this kind of thing with people. And
Well, this whole intro does seem like it. You just threw a mic up, like you said. It doesn't seem like it was belabored or overthought, which I think is great. At the 6-second mark, the verse progression comes in for 2 bars. You got drums, you got keys, you got piano, bass guitar, and that percussion loop that's going through it.
Right.
And this goes straight into verse 1.
Sir, there's no alternative.
They made up their minds and they started packing. They left before the sun came up that day. An exit to eternal summer slacking. But where were they going without ever knowing the way?
They made up their minds and they started packing. They left before the sun came up that day. An exit to eternal summer slacking. But where were they going without ever knowing the way?
I think that we need a little background on what I'm talking about. So I'm literally addressing, not literally, definitely not literally. I am addressing a story that I had read in the newspaper that day, that morning. It said missing couple from Texas still haven't been found. It's been like a week and a half or something. And I'm like, I just started speculating on, well, I'm not going to find them and stuff like that. Yeah, kind of pessimistically. And I just started riffing on that. What's the deal? What's the story? So I started writing my own story around that story, fictionalizing it and turning it into, this sort of dream in my head of, wow, they wanted to maybe become more exclusive to each other after raising a family and having grandkids and all that, and just being this sort of, oh, we're going to go to, mom and pops or whatever. They wanted more of their identity that they shared, the identities they shared together when they first became a couple. So super romantic notions of like revitalizing their relationship. So, maybe they just wanted to bail and wanted to be on their own. So they play in hooky from their lives. And I don't think that I don't think I let on the tragedy or what it is that I'm actually singing about throughout the song. But I think it betrays a dark vibe around it somehow. Even though it's ultimately optimistic, when you talk about the literal lyrics.
Yeah.
So you can, and then the second verse you might read on, Chris.
Yeah. well,
read on the second verse.
We're going to get to that in a second. I want to talk about this first half here. It's very lo-fi. There's a very stripped down feel here.
I want to explain. You had mentioned what you thought the tracks were.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I could be technically wrong, but I don't believe it's much more than the actual loop that we built from that keyboard that I demoed the song with.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think that what you're hearing in those is just my vocal, a couple of the radio thing that comes on, and then it's just the first sequencing of that loop. Like that's all just like this patch that was on. It was called a country blues patch. Like some Japanese engineer in 1985 made this thing. He recorded this patch, and it has that piano going, that honky tonk, ding 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 ding. And I think that's really about it. There may be some percussive stuff that Joey threw in there to fill it out more. But see, that's the whole thing, is the second verse comes in and it's, the bass and drums drop into it and it becomes probably 50% bigger.
Oh, well, that's what I say. It's like the electricity gets kicked on for the second half.
Right.
It's awesome. So I figured there was some kind of filter on that first half, which
Right.
there was. Now, back when you made this record, right around the time bands were starting to get into Pro Tools, was this done to analog tape or to Pro Tools?
This record was all recorded to tape, to 2-inch tape, and it was 24 track, Neve, Studer. I don't know if I'm sure they probably transferred drums onto a smaller amount of tracks, but I don't know. I really don't know. Like a kind of a layman, but a lame man. And what was the question?
Oh no, yeah, no. I was just talking about whether it was on Pro Tools or whether it was a tape.
Yeah, it was before all that. Yeah, and it was mixed. It was mixed from tape, I believe, by Chris Lord Alge.
Right on. Okay.
But it was the last. Well, the next album was kind of like that, but Pro Tools came into. We started making. And I'll just digress a little bit or progress. We went to recording on tape and then transferring to Pro Tools, and then we slowly went to recording drums to tape, transferring to half-inch. And then, putting that on a Pro Tools, a couple channels on the Pro Tools, and then boom, now we're exclusively Pro Tools. We still work in studios. We still use microphones. We use a lot of gear, a lot of old school gear and instruments. And I don't know, you can't get away from, having to play, having to perform, and having to sing. But you can do it faster now. That's what the beauty is. Anybody who knocks digital, I mean, I've had to go have a smoke for 3 hours while a guy edits tape when you knew damn well you could do the take if they just let me do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we didn't really know how to do records very well at all. I mean, we were lucky to be working with someone like Julian Raymond, and before him, Jerry Finn. Yeah. Jerry Finn did our first record, and he taught us a lot of stuff. He was teaching us how to be a full-on, like, hard punk band like Offspring or Rancid. And, we gleaned a lot of positive stuff from that, but that's really not where we were going.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot about recording drums and guitars, and then Julian brought us into the full sort of symphonic orchestral scope of things, literally, with like, here's an orchestra and here's Bennett Salve, and he has composed an arrangement for your song so-and-so, and that's how it became.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, with a major label, that's like, the money involved, and just like the whole, it's big. It's like making a movie.
Oh yeah, and back then the labels had the money to spend, as you know.
Uh-huh.
But
but it's and I have to remind everybody again, it's not their money, it's our money.
Right.
It's our money, because we're going to have to pay for it eventually.
Absolutely.
And 88,000 records sounds amazing to people today. If you can sell 88,000 CDs, like say on a tour, you're killing it, right? But if you have just sold 1 million records, and then your next record sells 88,000,
it's an utter failure.
Probably not going to be another record.
No,
and there wasn't.
Yeah,
there wasn't. Not with Hollywood. Was I out of my head? Was I out of my mind? How could I have ever been so blind? I was waiting for an indication. It was hard to find.
Hey everybody, we got to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, but we got lots more with Tony Scalzo after the break. Chris, on my first day of high school, I wore a Green Day Dookie t-shirt. And I've always kind of wanted another one. So I went on our sponsor, rockabilia.com's website, and oh my God, the amount of Green Day Dookie merch that you can get there. Dude, not only did they have the Green Day 1994 tour t-shirt on there, they also had the Dookie album cover in a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, like everything you could imagine of that album and just Green Day in general was at rockabilia.com. So my mind was kind of spinning on what to buy with the DeMakes discount code that gets me 15% off.
That's right. I got to tell you, they got brand new stuff that appears vintage, looks vintage, old designs. It's amazing. Over 500,000 items, more band merch than any other company or website. And yeah, use the discount code DeMakes. DEMAKES to get 15% off your order. I'm already over close to $300 now, Chris. I have bought so much stuff, not only for gifts for people, but for myself. I need to put the brakes on here soon.
I was eyeing up this Elton John, Benny and the Jets t-shirt on there. I'm like, all these years of loving Elton John, I don't have an Elton John t-shirt. It might be time to pull the trigger on rockabilia.com and get myself one.
Maybe our listeners will get you 500 of them will buy you an Elton John shirt.
I don't need that many Elton John shirts, but if you're going to get me an Elton John shirt, get it on rockabilia.com. You can get 15% off with the DeMakes discount code. Plus, you can support the artists on rockabilia.com because everything is officially licensed. You could choose from over 500,000 items. And on top of that, Rockabilia is a sponsor of Chris DeMakes a Podcast. It's just a big encompassing thing. You're helping everybody out. And most importantly, you're helping yourself out or a friend by buying something cool.
That's right. They don't just have t-shirts. They have jigsaw puzzles. They have ashtrays. They have belt buckles. They have action figures, all kinds of stuff over at rockabilia.com. Use the promo code DeMakes to get 15% off, man. You won't regret it.
Hey, this is Scott from Fly on the Call. Each week I speak to a different musician, whether they're in an established band like Silverstein or the Wonder Years, or a band on the rise like Spanish Love Songs, Origami Angel, or Meet Me at the Altar. We discuss music and lyrics, the successes and challenges of being in a band, and more, as we get to the core of each artist. The show features musicians of diverse genres and backgrounds, so there's always a chance I'll be talking to your new favorite band. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
Woke up, if you're sad, then it's time you spoke up to.
And now, back to the show.
The second half of this verse is interesting because there are harmonies on every line.
They drank up the wine and they got the talking. They now had more important things to say. And when the car broke down, they started walking. Where were they going without ever knowing the way?
They drank up the wine and they got the talking. They now had more important things to say. And when the car broke down, they started walking. Where were they going without ever knowing the way?
I'm going to start with the final verse of that section, and it's a tag, and it's literally a Bob Dylan, kind of trick. That's how we're going to make this song. Every verse is going to have this thing at the end. That's the hook. That's the tag.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal was to try to make verses lead up to that line specifically, because it's at the end of every verse.
It's great. As you said, it's a hook within the song that's not in the chorus. It's great.
So what they do on this thing that they started to do on the first verse, they obviously had a bottle of wine or two in the car. So I think that brings a little bit of a dark vibe going. And so they're on the road, in the car, they drank up the wine. All of a sudden, when you have a couple drinks, takes away that layer of inhibition, and the truth comes out. Truth juice, they're drinking that truth juice, and they started talking about some more, some things that were applicable to them, as a couple. And what was that third line? They drank.
Yeah, the third line was they now had
but their car broke down. What the fuck? What are they going to do now? They were just breaking ground on this, important thing they were doing, and now they're fucked. So that again brings in that sort of, the darkness sort of bleeds in.
Yeah. Well, I love the imagery of what's going on there. And I had written in my notes, This whole verse reminds me of a movie scene from like a Quentin Tarantino flick, like Pulp Fiction or
Great.
something. It's got like that.
Fantastic.
It's got that vibe to it, and the lyrics certainly lend a hand to that. There's some really cool arpeggiated guitar panned off left, almost like a tremolo that happens on the second half. Also sounds like, Tony, like some bongos come in, a guiro, and shakers on this part.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not sure. And I think that on this album, Joey does most of the percussion. On the next record, on Harsh Light of Day, we had a really fantastic Latin percussionist come in. But I think on this record, it's Joey you're hearing, that stuff. And whatever kind of guitar tracks we could pull out of Miles for this song.
Did you have Luis Conte come in on the next record?
Yes,
That's who it was?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Luis Conte.
Yeah, Luis Conte. He's
played on all kinds of records.
He's
man.
the best. That guy came in on one of our records. He was there a half hour. He was so fast. Got out his box of tricks. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else about this second part of this verse. The bass here. The bass is super tasteful against the drums. I love what the bass is playing here, and I love the tonality to it.
I'm on the bass on this particular record. Joey and I had been playing together, bass and drums. That's all we'd ever done together for a few years at this point. We were in another band together, and we got to know each other really well. We hung out together. We did a record out in Memphis for like a month. So we were living together and eating together, riding bikes, going to see movies, recording, not really just sitting there reading books, really, because we're the bass player and the drummer. We're done.
Yeah.
We're stuck out there, so we're done. We got to know each other. And then, when we formed Fastball, he was in that band with us too, and is to this day. So we had a lot of seasoning between the two of us.
Well, you can feel that interplay. It's not fake in any way. And I'll tell you again, there's harmonies on every line here. Then we get into the chorus. There's no harmonies on the chorus at all, which I find interesting.
Anyone can see the road that they walk on is paved in gold. And it's always summer, they'll never get cold. They'll never get hungry, they'll never get old and gray. You can see their shadows wandering off somewhere. They won't make it home, but they really don't care. They wanted the highway, they're happier there today.
Anyone can see the road that they walk on is paved in gold. And it's always summer. They'll never get cold. They'll never get hungry. They'll never get old and gray. You can see their shadows wandering off somewhere. They won't make it home, but they really don't care. They wanted the highway. They're happier there today.
Wow. I think that the chorus kind of refutes my earlier comment that I didn't think I let on any kind of like bad shit that went down with these people. But I think this chorus kind of spells it out, don't you?
Well, yeah,
Says, that's it. Oh, they won't make it home.
Yeah.
They won't make it home. But I try to throw in this optimistic thing, but they love it. They're walking hand in hand together where they are. Maybe they might not be in this plane.
Right.
But they're gone.
But if you're with your soulmate, you'll never get cold, never get hungry, never get old and gray.
Also, if you're dead.
If you if you're dead, but I'm telling you, I don't know. There's something about this. Again, the imagery here, it is great. It is the perfect chorus for what has gone on. But again, was there ever talk in the studio? You're in there with Julian. Hey, we got to put harmonies here, because it's interesting. There's no harmonies here, but they're in the verses. It's cool.
This is a great name dropping moment. We were playing at the Tractor. Actually, it was Miles and me were doing an acoustic duo thing at the Tractor in Seattle. And this was probably, about 20 years ago, maybe about 18 years ago. And Brandi Carlile and her brother were opening up the show. Brandi Carlile was a teenager.
Okay.
She is virtually unknown outside of her clique and her scene. And I met her backstage, and she was all over that song. And she's like, me and my brother do a cover of that. and we do a harmony on the chorus. And I'm like, she goes, how come you don't do that? And I go, well, you know, if it occurred to me to do it, I probably would have. But I'm, you know, and then now I'll get back to you and me. I think that we just didn't think of it, and it didn't need it.
Yeah.
And also, this wasn't a major priority, this song. It wasn't. I mean, I'm not saying that any song was really more significantly. Fire Escape, I think a lot of time was spent on that, and to good effect. Out of My Head, we did some things on that are fairly different from the way we had been doing stuff. But the way, I mean, even though we were doing this weird track before the actual band comes in, we weren't thinking about it as a major work.
Well, that's what and I usually ask this question. I'm glad you brought it up. You know, was this kind of just another song in the batch at this point? It wasn't like this is the
part
big
of the
song.
batch.
Part of the batch,
for sure.
Okay. Well, again, in my notes here, I wrote "so catchy." You know, it does.
So
as you said, it doesn't need the harmony.
To back up, and because it was just sort of one of the batch, and we had a lot of songs we had to record.
Yeah. And
we had a lot of boxes on that big, poster to fill. Oh, yeah. Remember that?
Absolutely.
Remember when we would do that? So because of that, it just kind of got, okay, this sounds done. Mm-hmm. And we just moved on.
Well, for the listeners, what Tony was just alluding to was the big poster board we all have in the studios. Right. We still do it, where you have the song list.
It's a good way to do stuff.
Yeah, you got drums, bass, guitar, and you just go through and you check everything off as you do it. It's a checklist, so you don't, when you're working on 13, 14 songs, you can't remember 2 days later, hey, did we do the tambourine in this song? So you have it up there. Yeah,
it's true.
Right on. Well, the guitar in the chorus is panned off left. There's an arpeggio. The guitar on the right is strumming chords. And it's kind of got this 12-bar blues feel going on. The piano panned off left has a real honky-tonk feel here in the chorus. And I have to ask, did being from Austin, Texas inspire that at all? That kind of honky-tonk sound there?
You know what? I've always had that. I've always been drawn to roots music. Mm-hmm. I've been drawn to the blues, and I grew up listening to country. And I grew up in Southern California with a mother who was an Elvis fan in high school. So I had like Dwayne Eddy records, the Platters, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, and Willie Nelson was really big in the family. But I love early rock and roll, and to me, blues and early rock and roll are kind of the same thing and the same feel. And Miles has, he was baptized in that kind of.
Well, this song has
blues bands, and same with Joey.
This song has like this, it's like this Americana, I don't know, innocence to it, but it's dark at the same time, but it's also uplifting. It's hard to explain. There's a lot going on in this track. It's a really special tune in that respect.
Right. Well, we were dealing with all kinds of elements that we didn't really know about, so we can't claim to. And I don't think Julian can either. It can claim to like be wizards that we were able to put them all together, and this is the recipe and just the right amount of,
No, well, again, to your point, this was just another song in the batch. You never know as an artist. I mean, how many times have you demoed songs or had songs where this is the one, and like it just doesn't do anything? You go to play it live.
Fortunately, not too many, because I stopped thinking that way a long time ago, before this record, actually.
That's good.
I think that you always got to go with what your artistic mind wants. And man, I never want to we've made a few mistakes in the past, I think, because I listen to some of our tracks and I'll hear stuff that's put in there that sounds so dated, like a sample of somebody saying something, and it's just like, we did not need to do that.
Right.
It just sounds so 1998. And, and the label didn't mind, but I wouldn't blame it on the label. It was our own insecurities. Mm-hmm. It was our own artistic, second guessing.
Any band that says they haven't done that's lying. I mean, we've all done it. Right out of chorus 1, we get into verse 2.
Children woke up
my God, we're only on verse 2. I would call this verse 3, by the way. So 1, 2, chorus, 3.
We'll call it verse 3. Their children woke up and they couldn't find them. They left before the sun came up that day. They just drove off and left it all behind them. But where were they going without ever knowing the way? Getting that hook again on that last line.
Well, I mean, a lot of people might take it out of context and say they're going to jail for being negligent parents and driving off and leaving their children. Because I say children, I mean, you can't say offspring. You can't say they're grown-up children, they're adult children, they're kids. You can't, and nothing works, but children sounds good, and it sounds the most poetic to me. So I did get a lot of questions like, what the hell, man? What? These people just left their kids?
Some people do.
On the floor in their own filth. So.
Well, that arpeggiated guitar in the other verse, panned off left, it sounds louder in the mix here, Tony, or EQ'd slightly hotter than verse 1. It really sticks out here on verse 2 in a great way. And I swear the bongos and that percussion, maybe even that underlying sample, it seems more pronounced here.
Well, it's still there. And I think you can really, the track making on this between Julian and, oh my gosh,
Chris Lord-Alge, the guy who mixed it?
No, not Chris. The engineer.
Because I was going to say, Chris Lord-Alge mixed our record 98 at the same time.
But
and
well, then, as you know, Chris has a sort of method. And
yes.
It's, technically, again, I wouldn't be able to describe it, but he tends to describe it with one word, and it's called spank. Chris Lord-Alge uses the word, I'm gonna put the spank on it. That's what he says. And apparently it's some degree of compression and this and that. That's why all our records sound similar and they have the same sort of bandwidth. Mm-hmm. They're perfect for 90s radio.
Yeah, well, Chris would do that. He would mix a little bit louder here in the second verse, and again, it just kind of lifts there.
Well, so maybe it was Chris then. I mean, I don't know, but I tend to think that we designed the tracks and we architected the tracks, like layered them up so that it would have that effect. But, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about half the time. So.
No. Either do I, Tony. There's also a backing vocal here just after the line. They just drove off and left it all behind them. And the backing vocal is leaving it all behind, panned off right. It's kind of like a blown out filtered sound that happens there.
Behind them. Where were they going without it?
I think he's probably just, got a little bit of, like maybe he's using a 57 or something, and it's like all no compression and super dead. Telephone, what we would use today in Logic called the telephone vocal.
Yeah, the telephone plug-in, yeah.
So, that was really popular back then. Remember that song, Novocaine for the soul, and he would have like the verses would be all that telephone vocal.
Jesus and his lawyer are coming back. On the door, will you be here before I sputter out?
I think that was kind of a trendy thing, and he still sings that when we play it live, and when he doesn't do it, I kind of Why don't you do that?
Why isn't it there?
Right.
Well, I like that part. It's the only time it comes in here, and then we go straight into chorus 2.
Anyone can see the road that they walk on is paved in gold. It's always summer, they'll never get cold. They'll never get hungry, they'll never get old and gray. You can see the shadows wandering off somewhere. They won't make it home, but they really don't care. They wanted the highway, they're happier there today.
the same lyric that we get in chorus 1.
That's the chorus.
It sounds like both guitars, again, are EQ'd a bit hotter here, and the strumming pattern on guitar right, panned off right, is a bit looser of a feel than chorus 1. And again, this wasn't done to Pro Tools, so this was kind of like how you played it that past.
Right. I'd love these masters, but I'll never see them. But I'd love to get my hands on them. I really would.
Yeah, but I love how that happens. And at the very end here on this chorus, on Today, there's a harmony. It's not on chorus 1, and it's held out longer here. It's about 2 bars. And then we get into an 8-bar guitar solo. It sounds like a hollow body. I wrote my notes here. It's like a spaghetti western, this reminds me of here. Over the verse progression here for 8 bars, and I love the solo. It's perfect for what's going on here.
We all loved that solo. We loved it. It took some doing. We had to really get him to focus. And I recall it was me and Julian just being like helicopters over him, and probably driving him crazy and inhibiting him in a way. To go back to the guitar, I'm pretty sure it was his Tennessean, the red Tennessean, which is, I could be wrong. It could be a Casino, and it could be one of Julian's, many, many guitars, but I'm pretty sure he was using that Tennessean for that. And it does have that great guttural tone, that low, mid, not a hint of crunch, but like natural kind of string distortion. And
yeah, there's definitely some fuzz on it. And it doesn't surprise me that this was a part of the song you had to kind of think about for a second, because this part's integral.
Right. It really ties the song together.
It does, because it's back over that verse progression. So you're in that world again, but you're not getting the lyrics. This has to be poignant.
I think this track, it's sort of informed by, David Lynch type things. Like Angelo Badalamenti did the soundtrack for Twin Peaks, and he had that dang, 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 that sort of guttural. It's like surfing through slime,
It is. It's that that Brian Setzer, Dick Dale type thing. It's awesome.
Right.
Yeah. It's very, very cool. Well, we come out of that solo, we go straight into chorus 3, and right when the solo ends, it's just the vocals by themselves. You say anyone can see, and then the band comes in on road right there.
Anyone could see the road that they walk on is paving the gold. And it's always summer, they'll never get cold. They'll never get hungry, they'll never get old and gray. You can see the shadows wandering off somewhere. They won't make it home, but they really don't care. They wanted the highway, they're happy there today.
The lyric again doesn't change here, but when we get to the line, they'll never get old and gray halfway through, the piano gets a bit more playful here than chorus 1 or chorus 2. I love that. And at the very end here, Tony, on Today, this is held out for 3 bars with a harmony. On the 4th bar, there's 2 bars of a synthesizer, almost video game sounding part that builds into an 8-bar outro solo. that synth turns into a very 70s, early 80s sound of a video game, almost like a gun on Asteroids or Defender, one of those old video games. And then halfway through, you say, leaving it all behind again, and then the band all stops together on that F sharp minor to end the track. But how'd that video game sound come about? That's awesome at the end. It's great.
Well, it's actually on the demo. I did that on the demo with a synth that just came in. And I kind of like did the oscillator, and I just hit one note. I hit the F sharp minor, or the F sharp, I guess.
Yeah.
And just did this thing, and then it came back in. But to do it in the studio, we I got to go back now and say Joe Barisi. Joe Barisi was the engineer. And
my God. Well, I can't tell you how many times we've talked about Joe on this show.
Right. Well, we didn't have Joe on the next album with Julian. So, and I was mistakenly thinking of that engineer. So, my apologies to the great Joe Barisi.
I was listening to Joe's work last night, Tony. He just remixed "Holy Diver" by Dio. That record,
it's perfect.
It sounds amazing.
When's that coming out?
It's already out. Go check it out. It's
I'll check
rad.
It out now.
Yeah,
I'll check it out right now.
Life's a never-ending wheel. Say, holy diver, you're the star of the masquerade. No need to look so afraid. Jump, jump, jump on the tiger. You can feel his heart, but you know he's mean. Some light can never be seen. Yeah.
There's a Dio film coming out.
Yes. I think that's probably why they had remixed it. But okay. I got to tell you, don't take this the wrong way. This song would have been what it was without this synth part. This synth part, almost, if you think about it, really seems out of place with the rest of the song. But at the same time, if this whole synth video game thing at the end wasn't here, it wouldn't be the same song. It makes the song. It's such a weird transition what the last 30 seconds of this song goes to.
Well, thanks. I guess I agree with that pretty much. We were kind of in the world at that time, and who was, I got to give props because they totally deserve it. And Greg Camp is a genius. Okay. Smash Mouth, those records, they really informed what we were doing. And Beck was really informing what we were doing. And we didn't get precious about what worked or what goes. They had all this vintage gear they were using, and like, well, now we're going to use a Mellotron, and now we're going to use this synth or this theremin. And so, we weren't trying to be like ironic or trying to be like off the wall. We were just strictly going with what we felt like we had a plethora of resources at our disposal. We're at A&M, man. We're at A&M Studio. And we got everything we need to make, our Sgt. Pepper or our Pet Sounds, maybe except the talent. But we saw it that way. And we saw that we had this great stuff in front of us. We might as well try it, see what it sounds like. So that synth thing, for me, it was also already there on the demo. I had done it. It was a little different sound, but Joe managed to facsimilate that sound pretty accurately and make it even better. As you know, on the video, you might not know, that whole part is sort of like, it's broken, like the track ends all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then there's this scene where Miles is running off this roof. And it's funny because he's got a guitar while he's running. But then the stuntman who jumps off the roof doesn't have the guitar. And then he lands and he's got the guitar. It's so weird, but that whole thing kind of gets broken up and you don't hear that synth thing until like we drive off.
It's great because, again, the videos were still selling a lot of records back then, as we all know.
I was lucky, and I got to say that it really helped that I already knew Mick G, because growing up in Southern California, I knew Mark McGrath, I knew Rodney and the Sugar Ray guys, and I knew Taylor Hawkins. I knew McG. They all went to the same school, and McG was up to do that video. He's like, I know Tony. Well, I want to do that. So that's why we were able to get such a good, crazy, and his whole vibe was do it all.
Yeah, right.
All of it, all the lights, all the new kind of cameras, get a fisheye shot in there. Yeah. Colors, wardrobe, choreography, dancers, that big production. I'll tell you what, it didn't hurt.
Yeah, for sure. Record. Well, before we break, Tony, is there anything that you'd like to leave the listeners? What you got going on with the band? I know you just released a new album called The Deep End this past June. So what's happening?
Well, what's happened is in the last 5 years, we've actually accelerated our creative output. The pandemic, I think you might hear this from a lot of artists, probably have already. I don't think anybody was negatively impacted as an artist by being able to focus on their work and, be sort of alone in your house and, create all this stuff. And it really kind of set a fire under our asses. We don't have anything else to do. Let's make music. And we've already put out 2 albums since the pandemic, and we're going for some more stuff right now. We're working now we did 2 albums with Steve Berlin. And those are The Help Machine and this last one, The Deep End. And we also recorded about 8 covers. So we've got a few of those in the can. And we've been recording with David Garza out at Sonic Ranch. So we've got some new stuff coming out there. It's not all the way done. So we have enough material to keep putting out stuff on a regular basis for our Patreon patrons. We have a Patreon that we offer up music early, unreleased stuff, special demos. I write a lot, and so I talk about the things that I'm offering to these people. And in exchange, they support our band with they support the Patreon account with like $5 a month or $7 a month or maybe $70 a year. And it really helps. And we save the money to go in the studio so we don't have to open up a credit card account to, that's sort of like the midterm of like the music history of Fastball. It's like during that midterm time, we would go into debt to make a record. And then merch sales would sort of slowly bring, our debt down. And then it'd be time to do another, and we don't have to do that anymore because we keep a kitty and we have a slush fund, so to speak. So we're independent, we really are independent, and we couldn't be happier. And it sort of sparked our, ability to do more things. And so here I am, and I'm glad I got to do it. I love doing this kind of stuff because it clears the air, not only to my thinking, it clears the air to the world. And also for me, it really helps me to realize, the things I've done in my life, it's easy to forget when you're living your life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sitting in with us. I appreciate it, Tony.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Over the love we had, how it all went bad. If I could take it all back, I would. 'Cause I never remember the really bad times. I only remember the good.
Hey everybody, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with Tony Scalzo, but don't even think about turning off this podcast. We got lots more Chris DeMakes a Podcast after a few words from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, if you need a unique, thoughtful, and inexpensive gift for a friend or loved one, check out iloveenamelpins.com. Make someone's day by giving them a little present to show you care. Over 80 different pins are available, everything from cats and dogs to your favorite celebrities. And to top it off, you can use the discount code DeMakes at checkout to save 30% on your order. iloveenamelpins.com. Give them something to wear that shows that you care.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a podcast, all you have to do is email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumighttnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is Not, spelled N-O-T, a punk rock band from Los Angeles, California, featuring Davey Warsop on lead vocals, Brendan Scholes on guitar, Jared Cooper on bass, and Kyle Whitmore on the drums. Their debut album, Stop the World, will be out in April 2023. Give them a follow on Instagram at the band Not. Here's a snippet of the album's title track and first single, Stop the World.
We could stop the world. Maybe you could be my girl. Maybe I could give you some things that I promised you. Oh, if we could stop the world, maybe I could be your girl. Oh, if I could stop the world for you. My phone didn't stop buzzing today.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Chris, I thought that was an awesome episode. I was smiling the whole time. Tony was cracking me up during the whole thing. And also, I loved hearing the story behind such an interesting song. You knew there was a story there. Even if it wasn't completely clear from the lyrics, you knew there was some kind of story, and I thought the story was really cool.
Yeah, I use the term imagery a lot. There's a lot of imagery here, especially in that chorus when, just the lyrical sentiment there. But the fact that he got up one morning and was reading the paper about this couple that had gotten lost and turns it into a song. And again, how many times have we heard this, Chris, on the show, that this was just another song in the batch? No one was paying any extra special attention to it. It was just another one of the songs. And who could have ever known this would have been their standout smash hit?
Well, that was one of the most notable things, what you just brought up, was that he wrote a song based on a news story that he read that morning. And that headline, that news story, sparked this story in his head. And he created this thing that is completely made up. Now, not the inspiration for it, but his version of the story is completely made up. That's like being a writer, like a novel writer. Mm-hmm. And he turned this into a hit song. I think that's amazing.
It is amazing. We haven't seen that too many times on this show. It's usually, hey, this was the inspiration behind this track. These were the lyrics, and I had this idea. But this was like someone writing, like you said, like a book, like a novel. And the fact that it became this thing, it's amazing.
I love that you brought up the radio dial thing at the beginning. I didn't know if you were going to skip right over that. The fact that he has like the radio dial noise.
Yeah.
And yes, it does seem counterintuitive to put that at the beginning of something that's going to be played on the radio.
Yeah.
Because people might think like, oh, I'm going to change a channel for, what's going on with the radio right now. But I thought it was so cool that he said no. People that worked at radio were like, that's us. That's like what we do. And also the fact that he just put a microphone up to the actual radio. I guess I never picked out that Jewel was in there.
Yeah, Foolish Games by Jewel. And it's amazing that, again, his explanation, I never thought he would go there. If anything, Chris, you thought that it would be on the album track, but when they serviced it to radio, they would have cut that part. It just would have came in with the band, because they easily could have done that. But no, whoever at Hollywood Records was doing radio promo said, we're sending the single out as is, which they did, and radio programmers embraced it. Good for them.
I loved his honesty when he talked about why he didn't put harmonies on the chorus. He was like, we didn't think of it. It didn't need it. We didn't think of it. I mean, that's about the most honest answer ever. There wasn't a real deep. It was like, we didn't think of it. And this song kind of wasn't a priority to us. And that just goes to show, man, you never know.
Right.
Like if you have a song that isn't your favorite of the batch, you don't know how that's going to translate to the rest of the world.
Well,
I think that's
well,
amazing.
he mentioned Bob Dylan and Tom Petty, who Bob was one of his main influences. He started a side band, the Traveling Wilburys, with him. But Tom Petty was famous, as Dylan was, with doing, and Tony was talking about the last line, where were they going without ever knowing the way? Having a lyrical hook within the verse. You look at I Won't Back Down by Petty. The last lyric in the verse for that is I won't back down. And then the chorus, it's I won't back down. You're saying the same thing. It's great.
Right. It's like a landing point for each verse. It's like, okay, well, how do I get back to that line? And how do I get there a different way each time? It's almost like a sort of template or like parameters for songwriting that can really steer you in a really cool direction. I love that.
It's great. And what I didn't say to Tony, didn't bring up, that's where you get the title of the song, not in the chorus. You get it in the verse without ever knowing the way. It's really cool.
Wow, that's such a good point, because when I think of this song, I think of that last line of the verse. It's almost like when you talk to, when you had Ryan Key from Yellow Card on, and he talked about, Ocean Avenue. That's not even anywhere near the chorus. That's the first line of the song, but that's what you remember. And then on top of that, in this song, the chorus itself is amazingly catchy. If you would have called the song something else, maybe that would be what you remembered. If you would have called the song The Road or Paved in Gold or something, maybe that's what you would think of. But it's almost like this song has a big hook, and then on top of that, a catchy as hell chorus. Chris, did you watch Twin Peaks in the 90s? Did you know what he was talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, exactly.
I never put two and two together as far as like that guitar sound, but I love that he said it sounded like surfing through slime. I thought that was really, really awesome.
No, and the other thing, and I didn't even ask him this because I know the answer, there's a lot going on in this chorus, word-wise. It's not a hook that's repeating, you're singing over and over again, so it's no surprise that all three choruses are the same lyric. You really couldn't hit people with more information there. But at the same time, we have talked about this on the show, you get choruses that are too wordy sometimes and there's no payoff. There's something about this chorus that just works wonderfully with as many words as it has. It's great.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to change this up. If someone gets it down, like finally I know all the words to the chorus, don't change it up on them. That would just be rude. And I've said this before, and I think there's something to it. It's kind of a stretch of a comparison, but it's kind of like those songs like It's the End of the World as We Know It by REM, where it's like, if you know all the words to it, you're excited to sing them because you know them all.
Right.
It's like, hell yeah, I know all these words. So I think that makes it a little fun for the person in the crowd to sing along to all those words. I don't know, just kind of what I think. And Chris, also, I'm impressed with your recollection of people's names. I think you're the best at that. You're the ideal host. Who's that guy's name you pulled out of nowhere? Did you work with him before?
Luis Conte. He played percussion on a Less Than Jake record before, as well as we were talking about Joe Barresi at the end, which we've talked about him on the show. But yeah, again, it's my useless knowledge, Chris, that sometimes pays off. You never know when it's going to, but when it does, it's gold.
And speaking of useless knowledge paying off, we have a whole other podcast called The After Party.
Ah, what a segue. Bravo.
That was a very good one because it's very true. I wouldn't say that the knowledge that you learn on The After Party is necessarily useless. I think it's fun, informative, educational, and I don't know, a good way to pass the time with your good friends Chris and Chris.
That's right. And a good way to support the podcast that you know and hopefully love. Once again, head over to ChrisDeMakes.com for the price of a cup of coffee or a beer once a month. You, too, can be part of the after party. We'd love to have you. If you haven't already, please join the Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. Over 4,000 active members. We have a ball in there, so go join if you already haven't. And please, keep spreading the word about Chris DeMakes a Podcast. We really appreciate it. We could not do it without you. Tell a friend or 10. We'd appreciate it. And give me a follow on Instagram at LessThanChrisD. I'd appreciate it. Want to thank this week's guest, Tony Scalzo, for sitting in with us. And we'll see you next week.
Do you enjoy the content and production of Chris DeMakes a Podcast? Do you have an idea for a podcast or an existing podcast that you'd like to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. At WeKnowPodcasting.com, we have over 25 years of combined experience in the pod field, and we're ready to help you succeed in the golden era of podcasting.
Hey, this is Chris Swinney, formerly of the Ataris and currently host of That One Time on Tour, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Have you ever wondered what it's really like on the road? The highs can be euphoric, but the lows can be crushing. Join me every week as I chat with industry pros about what it's like living out their wildest dream and, in some cases, their worst nightmare. Past guests of the show include members of NoFX, Pennywise, Bad Religion, and more. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hi, this is Paul Phelps.
And this is Monica Strutt.
And we're from the Daily Music Business Podcast. We're joined by a number of other really great hosts in creating daily content with great advice for independent musicians just like you.
That's right. We put out episodes daily on all topics from music marketing to branding, advice on signing with a manager and label, and anything else you need to up-level the business side of your music career. We've got it covered.
Subscribe to the Daily Music Business Podcast today on your favorite podcast catcher.
Subscribe today to the Daily Music Business Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.